Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to day 7 of Song a Day. Today we're going to be talking about My Head Sometimes.
My Head Sometimes is definitely one of the heavier or more metal songs on the album.
My Head Sometimes originally started as part of Adam's solo EP, and it was way more jazz fusion than it was in this iteration.
We wrote a pretty different song with parts of it together at Berkeley in September 2015, and we were pretty happy with that song. And we never really touched that demo until November 2016 when we met up for a writing trip at my house in Lake Placid, and then we just tore it apart and reworked a lot of stuff.
It has a lot of darker elements which are meant to kind of symbolize how we can get caught up in our thoughts in our heads sometimes. In this day and age, there's so much technology, overstimulation, we tend to overthink things, and lives can just seem chaotic.
To give you some context, the last 3 songs we had done before My Head Sometimes were Hip Dipper, Color Wheel, and Bloom. So they're a little bit more softer and fusiony. So it was time for just some aggressive riffage, and that's what came out.
As far as the bass on this song goes, it was really more focused on getting that raw emotion and energy into the performance than any sort of technique or speed or anything like that, because it's more rhythmically based than speed-based or note-based as far as the bass goes. So all that energy, it comes straight from the hard plucks.
It was actually really challenging to get going when writing this song. We first wrote, after the melody obviously, that main chordal heavy riff. We came up with a chord progression, and we were really struggling at first to make it interesting, because it's just a chord progression. Where do you go from there? We knew we wanted it to be heavy. We started just playing power chords and seeing what we could come up with, but that was kind of boring. So I said, listen Joey, let me just sit for a little bit with it and see what I can come up with thick chord voicings. There were a lot of big chords in there, like 6-string chords. When he came back, I had a good start, and we had a good jumping off point.
Richie totally nailed the performance as far as the drumming goes. He really got that anger and those hard hits into his drum parts, and it really gave the song some extra life. For that extra amount of groove and energy, we were actually able to track the bass and drums on the floor of the studio, so there was no overdubs done on the bass part. It was all recorded live with the drums, and I think that added a little extra something to it.
Those opening piano synth arpeggios are basically just a big classical piano exercise, and they are not at all similar to each other. So each one is a varying number of notes, like septuplets or 16th triplets or straight 16ths. So it's more about knowing your target notes at the top and bottom.
The intro is really interesting as well, because it just has those pedals, those tones. They sound pretty thick because the patch that I'm using in my Axe effects is actually a heavy rhythm tone on one amp, and then a synth tone on another amp, but with some distortion and overdrive, so it just sounds like a drone.
Joey did an amazing job coming up with some of the orchestral parts on this song too. The French horns blaring away with some of the strings chugging in the background really helped to add some of that extra intensity to the bigger sections of the song, and it really made it sound huge.
The song has really grown on me over time. I don't know about you guys, but when I was first working with it, when we first had the demos, it wasn't one of my favorites to just sit and listen to. But now it just, I don't know what it is. It's something about that groove in the, the breakdown section, if you will.
The song just has really fun riffs, a nice chorus-style melody, and it's not afraid to be brutal and over-the-top cinematic. It's just this album's bleh. I named this song as a standalone name, and then Joe gave us the idea of thematically writing a follow-up. So that led to the counter-twin of My Heart Sometimes, and the segue between the 2 songs was probably the last thing I made for the album. I'm always a sucker for those proggy, multi-song conceptual themes. Thanks for watching today's episode of Song a Day.
And thank you again so much for watching, and stay tuned tomorrow for My Heart Sometimes, the final song in our Song of the Day series. Peace!